Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you all here at this 5P Council's webinar for the IP in Quantum Technologies, Europe's Startup Edge in Global Innovation. My name is Axel Frazzini. I'm the Managing Director of 5P Council, and I will be your host today. As you know, 5P Council is a not-for-profit organization, and we focused on the link between IP and innovation. Our mission is to identify the most relevant topics and produce empirical research by collaborating with a variety of academics, experts, IP organizations, and other stakeholders. On our website, you can find a lot of different free materials. For example, you have guides, studies, summaries of relevant research papers, recordings of the webinars, such as this one that will be available tomorrow, as well as podcast episodes highlighting innovators, companies, creators, and all kinds of people willing to create the next new ideas. We'll also produce easy to digest content at the number 4, SME Corner. So for startups, how to learn about patent, trademarks, copyright, etc. They are especially tailored for non-IP experts, SMEs, and again, startups. We also have a new area on the website that is called IoT and Cellular Standards Made Simple, where you can learn about the benefits of standardization and Internet of Things across different sectors. Check it out if you want to learn more. You can now follow us on X, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, as well as on Instagram. Our handle is easy to remember because that's 4IP Council. But without further delay, it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers for today's webinar. We have Yann Menier, Yatta Toro, and Eran Kochbey. So Yann Menier is the Chief Economist at the European Patent Office, and he was previously a professor of economics at the University Paris Sciences et Lettres, where he led the chair on IP and markets for technology. Yatta Toro is an experienced intellectual property professional with 20 years of background in telecom and quantum computing in strategic, tactical, and operational roles. Formerly head of IP at IQM, and now as an IP business advisor at full-service property law firm Berggren. Eran Kochbey is currently serving as a patent engineer at Multiverse Computing. With over 9 years of experience in the intellectual property industry, he specializes in computer-implemented methods. But before we get started, I would like to remind you that you can ask your questions directly using the Q&A tool that is at the bottom of your screen. Live questions will be answered right with the flow of the discussion. We will start with a presentation made by Yann, and then a discussion with Yann, Yatta, and Eran. So please do not wait for the last minute to ask your question. And Yann, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Axel, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here, especially to discuss this important topic. As you can imagine, at the EPO, our role is we have to monitor technological trends to understand what are the next waves of applications that may come towards us. And in doing this exercise, it is clear that there is a momentum with quantum. And so step by step, we are mapping and monitoring this field. And today I would like to share a few insights from this exercise with a specific focus on quantum computing technologies. Why? Well, because we observe that with patent data, but there are other sources of information clearly that quantum computing patenting is experiencing strong growth globally, but in Europe as well. And when we focus more specifically on Europe, it's quite interesting because we are really observing a build-up phase, a nascent ecosystem in that field, and a complex one combining academia, scientific research, but also with industry, with startups. And beyond the fact of monitoring or anticipating patent applications, we also think we have a role in communicating, raising awareness of the importance of the patent system and patent protection in that field. We think this is possibly a challenge, especially for the European industry or quantum computing ecosystem. And so it's important to remind the audience and innovators in that space of the importance of patenting and the opportunities offered by the European patent system. There are especially two reasons why I think it is important to mention it today. The first one is that quantum computing is about computing, and there is often a lack of awareness or misunderstanding about what are the opportunities for patenting when it comes to computer implemented inventions, software related inventions. So there is this notion that software are not patentable in Europe. In fact, they are not patentable as such, but a computer implemented invention is patentable insofar as it has a technical effect. And this is true as well for quantum computing. So basically, there is a very well-established approach at the EPO towards examining computer implemented inventions, the so-called two hurdles approach, which is applicable as well to quantum computing. And this approach implies that what the abstract part, the pure abstract and the mathematical part of quantum computing inventions is not patentable as such, so that concerns quantum circuits or algorithms because they are abstract. But anything that relates to an application or an implementation that can be shown to have a technical character is patentable because it has a technical effect. And so there is an opportunity for patenting inventions in that field. And this opportunity is often or sometimes ignored by actors in the ecosystem. And so it's always worth to remind them of that possibility. The second reason why it's important to remind European actors of the quantum computing ecosystem, of the opportunity of the European patent system, is that many of them are academic institutions. As you can see on this chart, where we identified all international patent families related to quantum computing. So first, it's exploding. It's growing very fast over the last years. And second, it's half made of or coming from the academic world, from universities. So it's very much science derived or grounded field. A lot of the progress is coming from universities or from fundamental research, and the reflex of using patent protection in that case is not systematic, although this is critical to bring later on these technologies to market. So another reason for reminding of the importance of protection. So that's the split at the global level between universities and industry, but it's also interesting to look, of course, at the geographical origin of these patents. And there, as you can see on this chart, we see clearly a domination of the United States. So this is by far the most important country in terms of quantum computing patenting. So it's the pink area at the bottom. But it's also interesting to observe that we have quite a strong growth in other parts of the world, including Europe. You have the EU27 in red, but also China and Japan, and they are more or less on par. So there's really an open competition in that field, with probably a more advanced ecosystem in terms of patenting entities in the US, but also emerging, developing ones at a fast pace in Europe and Asia. We can dive a bit deeper to get an understanding of who are the actors there, and we see a diversity of actors. So on this chart, you have the top 50 players globally in terms of international patent families in quantum computing. And this is worth a few observations. The first one is about the domination, at least in terms of volume of patenting of the US actors and the Japanese ones. So 9 of the top 10 ones are from these two countries, with at the top IBM by far, followed by Microsoft and Google. The 10th one, which is not neither US or Japanese, is D-Wave from Canada. But this does not mean that Europe is absent from the ranking. And actually, if we have a look at applicants based in Europe, so EU or the UK, we see a significant number of them, and they combine startups as well as research institutions such as the CNRS or the University of Delft, for instance, as well as more established companies such as Infineon, for instance, or Atos. So that's an open space and an ecosystem. Clearly, the definition of an open ecosystem in building, where collaboration is probably an important strategy enabled by the patent protection. Looking more closely at the startups based in Europe, we can identify 31 of them with European patent applications in quantum computing, accounting as of our latest statistics for a total of 220 patents. And as you can see on the map, we will come back to that. They are mainly located for the moment in France and the UK, but not only. The top European applicant is a startup, IQM, which is field startup. Talking about startups, and the importance of the patent system, I would like to emphasize again that patents are critical, oftentimes for young companies bringing new technology to market in that field. A way to illustrate that is this result from a recent study that we published with the EU Intellectual Property Office last year, where we checked whether the fact of having filed a patent application or trademark had an impact on the ability of a startup to raise funding. And indeed, the results clearly show this impact. You can see it on the slide. Actually, in the case of a startup at an early stage that has filed a patent and a trademark, the likelihood of attracting venture capital investors is 10 times higher compared to a startup in a similar sector, age profile, but without this patent and trademark. So IP rights also matter to protect, but also to attract investors as a signal towards investors. And I will conclude on that. This is the reason why we launched recently, also last year, a tool which is freely accessible online called the Deep Tech Finder, which makes it possible literally to put these startups with European patent applications on the map. So as of today, we have more than 8,000 startups listed in this tool. And I will take a few minutes to show you how it works. So that you can directly use the tool if you wish. So we are now with the online version of the tool, really accessible. You see that we have 8,400 startups listed as of today. For each of them, let's say this one, you can check their website, their ID card, their funding history in Dealroom. It's a partnership with Dealroom, but also their portfolio of European patent applications with a direct link to Espace. And our plus with this tool, and the reason why you may be interested in it, is that we are using the expertise of the EPO, our search tools, and the expertise of our examiners to enable search by technical fields. So we are continuously adding technical fields, including one on quantum computing, which we added recently, which makes it possible for you to directly identify all startups in Europe that have been filing patent applications with us related to quantum computing. You can see them on the map as well as on the list, and stay tuned, because we are planning to further expand this list of of search filters to other quantum technologies, with quantum communication coming next in September and October with a report and a new filter in this detailed finding. Thank you, and back to you, Axel.
Thank you, Jan. That's amazing, what you can do with data. But let's get started with a few questions, because you just said IQM was the leaders in patenting in Europe. And we have Yatta, who has actually created this innovator's mindset at IQM. So the first question will go for you, Yatta. How can IP create value in the field of quantum computing?
Okay, thank you for the question. Maybe I can first comment on the statistics that Jan just showed. So it is true that Europe is lagging behind US and China and Japan. But then again, you need to remember that it seems that at least in US, companies have started a bit earlier. And of course, there is a lot of public and private funding with these companies, big companies, who can then, of course, invest on patenting. But that is no excuse for European companies not to patent their inventions. And especially since we are talking about these kind of fundamental technologies for years to come, it is really important to take our stake there, not for us to become only the users of those technologies. Since there was another similar kind of a report from the Euroquick IPT working group, where one of the conclusions was that actually even within Europe, US based companies are patenting more within the field of quantum computing than the European companies. So the end result could be that European companies would have to pay for using their technologies in their own markets. So obviously there is value in kind of protecting the distinctive parts of your business to just keep the sustainable advantage, and that is only available through IP. In general, I think you can create a value with the IP, for example, by licensing directly patents or technology, or even selling patents. Or then the other way is to differentiate, or to use the IP for product differentiation. So then you can kind of exclude others from the market and perhaps command premium prices or capture market share. Maybe in the field of quantum computing, the most obvious way at this point is to use IP for defensive purposes. So basically, you have IP that you can hopefully use in case somebody approaches you. So that is a kind of a collateral in that case. Of course, there are other values. One of those being what could be already seen in the Jan's presentation, so that you can attract investors. And especially as a startup, you might be also kind of targeting exit some point. So there could be an M&A. So then you are kind of targeting to get a value creation opportunity for the company that is the potential buyer. And then there are, of course, several other kinds of values. And since the quantum computing technologies are in the early stages, I think the main value is now in ensuring investments and value in exit, defensive value, and then product differentiation. But maybe in 5 to 10 years, there is ability to extract other values as well.
That's interesting, because clearly, so you were working for a hardware company, and there is a lot of competition in this domain, but not only. Eran, if you can tell us more about multiverse computing. I mean, that's a company doing a lot of partnership and doing software development. So how is actually, what's the importance of intellectual property rights in this specific domain. And I can know that on the graphic shown by Jan, multiverse is quite well placed as well.
Thank you for the question, Axel. Actually, multiverse computing is very the intellectual property. If we talk about the intellectual property, patenting is very important for multiverse computing. Most of time in our projects, we are specifying the projects that related our products or customer related projects or research projects. And we are most of time trying to protect these products with patenting. But if we check our portfolio, most of our portfolio created by our research project. Most of time we are investing the research, and after these results, we are trying to protect these investment with intellectual property. If we check our collaboration, the other companies, most of times, actually it depends what the requests, what did they request for us from us, or what we will creating for our collaborators. Actually, we are managing that kind of situations similar to our industries, I believe. But most of time we are really trusting our intellectual properties. For example, sometimes we may need keeping some core information as a trade secrets, but we are not prefer the protecting it with copyrights, because sometimes if we think about internationally, copyright laws may depend the other countries' law, but if we speak about patent, most of the patent laws are regulated as internationally. So we are most of the time preferring the intellectual property as patenting, especially if we check the 90s, 50s or 60s in the computer industry develop with intellectual property. So we are right now in early stage in this quantum computing. So we really evolve with the technology with protecting our products.
Okay, I see. Maybe a question for Jan. From the numbers that you displayed today, I believe they are really fresh and updated, but the numbers are a bit different from the ones that were in the reports from 2019 and the 2023 reports. Somebody also asked about the fact that most of the quantum computers are analogous and not so not clearly fitting into the categories. So how do you manage to have those numbers updated? How you are fine-tuning? How do you create this?
Yes, thank you, Axel. So to the first question, indeed, we regularly monitor and adjust actually our monitoring method. And in particular, the difference with the first statistics we have produced on that field comes from a restriction on the claims actually. So you have a number of applications, actually a growing one, and this is why we did this limitation that claim a potential quantum computing applications, but the invention itself is not focused on quantum computing. So this is the difference actually. This is now excluded from the statistics that I've been showing. To the second question, well, that's a good one as well. I would not discuss it in terms, and I think I would not be able to enter into the technicality. But the point is that the approach I described proceeds from a logical reasoning of how to apply the European Patent Convention. And this was the challenge we were initially facing with computer implemented inventions. So software is not patentable as such, but what makes an invention patentable is a technical effect. So this is what we are looking for. Abstraction as such is not sufficient. And what makes it possible to pass the bar is the demonstration of the technical effect. And this reasoning may apply in different technology environments, including quantum computing.
That's good. Okay. Then some people wonder about open ecosystems, and that could be maybe more for Yata. When we talk about open ecosystems, we think of open source environment, of course, but open standardization is also something important. We can see more and more activity in standardization of quantum related technologies. So what's the role of those open ecosystems in your opinion?
Well, I think in general, if you as a small company try to get there on your own, if you're thinking about vertically integrated business model, it can be really resource consuming and maybe not the best option. So in that case, instead kind of specializing in only certain parts of the technology stack where you are actually good at may make more sense. And then there comes into the picture kind of defining interfaces between various parts of the quantum computing system, which can be done, for example, by the way of standardization, or I know there is this paradigm of quantum open architecture, which has been at least discussed in Europe in certain countries, which may be actually even a good idea if we are competing with large companies who have lots of resources and they can kind of build their own quantum computers. So if we are talking about standardization, I think that is, at least in the field of quantum computing, still kind of in the infancy, but there are few standards and working groups also in the international level, like ISO, IEEE, Sensenelec, ETSI. They are, I think, currently defining this common terminology and performance benchmarks. But in the future, when this technology readiness level increases, there will be more focus towards demonstrating the functionality of these systems and then integration towards existing systems and technologies. And how this relates to IP, well, I think there could be potential for generating standard essential patents at the same time. So those companies who are actually contributing into the standards, and if they have any patented inventions, then those could potentially become standard essential patents and then, of course, generate more value for the companies. I know that in China, there is actually some sort of a national or governmental support for individuals to participate in standardization and especially in the area of quantum computing. So I think it seems in Europe, especially startups, they don't have resources for this, and it seems like this is something that they don't want to prioritize because they are kind of putting more effort on productization and other kind of things. But this is something that I think would make sense to put effort into in the long run.
Indeed. Maybe just to create a gap, because we talk about international activities and how the US companies are well advanced compared to Europeans. Before giving the floor to Eran, I have a question for you, Jan. How do you explain the gap actually between Europe and US in quantum computing patents?
I would I'm not sure it's so specific to quantum computing, actually. So I think there are compounding factors in the case of the quantum computing, namely this sometimes lack of awareness about what is patentable, and second, the fact that it's very close to the academic world. But if we broaden the focus and consider digital technologies more generally, we have the same or similar pattern. Actually, 2 years ago, we conducted quite a thorough survey with the European Investment Bank on startups and small businesses in Europe and the US that file patents on patent applications on digital technologies, broadly defined, especially with a focus on the smart connected object, broadly defined. And we find the same time of pattern. So you have less of them in Europe, and when you find them, they have less patent applications, and I'm here talking about international patent families again, so something we can compare. You have less international patent families on average in European startups compared with the US ones, and so there are deeper factors at play as well. I think one of them is common is the awareness of the patentability, but there is also a culture of IP protection that is probably stronger in the US among the startups and the inventors, but also among the investors. You have investors that are more sensitive or more savvy about patent protection in the US, perhaps still. And perhaps the last factor, but again, making it even broader, is the amount of funding available from these investors. So this is still something in building in Europe, where Europe is lagging a bit behind the US.
That's a very smooth transition, because people are hesitating to patent, or maybe they don't have the background, the experience, the funding. But with the example of your company, Aaron, where you are focused on software, which is something that we require quantum computers. Sometimes we believe that it requires the quantum computers. But could you explain how patenting software is managed, especially in the quantum domain?
Thank you. Actually, I'm describing it before Jan mentioned it. According to EPO, that's all defined as computer implemented methods. But I believe there's a key difference in quantum computing because right now we are using hybrid methods that includes classical that needs classical processors or and quantum processors, and there is a relation between them. So that I think that this helps us something achieving or with technical effects of the quantum computing. Also, if we check the other common problem with patenting in the computer implemented methods, most of time we are facing the achieving inventive steps. These are so similar to the classical methods. But I think we have an advantage in quantum computing. One of this advantage, the technology is so new and there is not too much document or research project in the state of the art. So this help us for achieving, especially creating the novelty in this application. Other than, for example, quantum computing, if we define a specification for patenting, quantum computing should have significant advantage over the classical computing methods or parallel computing methods. If we check an examiner, how did they approaching our application? First of all, we can add models of quantum computing like quantum circuitry. This gives us an advantage if we compare the classical software patent applications. Or right now the technology evolving, most of time we are using superconducting computing or ion trapped computing. But if we get any improved hardware, we always evolve the computing method to new hardware. I think these are advantage of the patenting in quantum computing. I think these options are getting easy for granting a patent application other than the classical methods.
Oh, very interesting. But maybe, Yatta, you could share with us some experiences from patenting quantum computing related inventions.
Yes, so at least basically, based on my experiences, it has been quite easy, or relatively easy to patent hardware-related inventions. So basically, for example, different kind of qubits, or how to control these qubits, or how to read them, or control electronics-related inventions, what have you. But then, as Aaron mentioned, there are maybe more difficulties in the area of quantum software and algorithms. But as long as you are able to kind of describe them so that there is this kind of a technical effect and how is it implemented on the hardware, then it should be fine. Maybe some of the experiences that we had at IQM was that there can be kind of different kind of quality with the examiners and their understanding, patent examiners understanding on this field. And of course, it can be difficult since there is not that much prior art yet available, especially in the patent publications. So actually the closest prior art could be in the research papers. Not sure how familiar all the patent examiners are with that kind of materials. And then, of course, there can be some delays with the patent classifications, and there are no citation networks available yet. So this can also kind of have an effect on the examination process. What else? Well, maybe it is good to try to file your patents as soon as possible, since I remember I had a situation where I was actually looking at one company's patent, which was exactly the same that we had filed only actually 1 day earlier. So there is a lot of new filings happening all the time. And if you are kind of delaying this process, it can happen, especially in startups when you have other things to do, especially for the inventors, that they don't have enough time for the patent drafting process, that the competitor is kind of faster than you are. So therefore, my recommendation is not to sit on it and maybe not to look for the perfect prior art, but rather to try to put it together as soon as possible and then file it.
I think that's a very good point, and that's something we can turn different way. For Jan, how the examiners are actually staying up to date? Because every day I can see like dozens of papers published on arXiv, and to be honest, I don't have the time to read them all. I don't know anyone, or maybe one person that read almost them all. But how the examiners can really catch up with all those new inventions on those research papers?
Well, that would be a question for an examiner, but I think it's the usual response. It's a mix of hiring the experts, so recruiting for us the challenge of finding the right experts. We have 4,000 examiners, and so this scale actually makes it possible to have dedicated team of experts for as specific fields as quantum. And then we invest heavily in the documentation, in prior art collection. So I believe we have the biggest prior art collections in the world. And the last but not least is the tools, the software tools that makes it possible to smartly search, go through this prior art to retrieve the most relevant one. So this is also something we are constantly working on and improving with quite impressive results in our tools based on artificial intelligence.
That's very good. I mean, it is complicated, but we have to do the catch up all the time. Maybe for Eran and Yata, now considering that we can see a lot of collaboration in this ecosystem, because there is more and more IP filed, how do you foresee licensing agreements evolving in the quantum sector, especially with this growing, booming collaboration among the different companies in Europe, but also outside Europe? Who wants to start?
I think there is already licensing happening, at least if we are talking about these different kind of grant projects where companies are collaborating. So there you have already this kind of standard licensing clauses. But if we are talking about commercial kind of collaboration, I would assume that if you are able to collaborate, basically, I think one of the challenges is, especially if you are having this kind of vertically integrated business model, and then you're trying to kind of protect a lot of things in different parts of the technology stack, then the IP conflicts may occur when you are trying to kind of collaborate with other parties. But let's assume that you are only concentrating on certain parts and then the other party is kind of concentrating on the other parts, then it may be easier to kind of collaborate. And then obviously you should have some sort of a licensing agreement between these companies. I don't know if I answered the question in a correct way, but I would assume that, and I would hope in the future that the companies within Europe would collaborate more. And then, of course, there should be some sort of licensing agreements which would kind of define how the companies should treat their background IP and who owns the foreground IP, etc.
Okay, Jan and Eran.
Yes, thanks. I don't know to what extent this applies to quantum computing, but I mentioned the studies we conduct with the European Investment Bank and on European startups that, well, especially in deep tech. And a clear, consistent finding is that they need the European single market to scale up. And especially at the beginning, they rely a lot on patent protection to establish partnerships. So to go in the direction mentioned by Yata. And so geographical coverage matters. And that's not something obvious in Europe because, well, we have a single market, but that is the sum of countries and jurisdictions, and that is not so easy as easy as in the US or China, for instance. And so I wanted to actually first to mention that since June 2023, there is now a unitary patent, so that makes it possible for young businesses in Europe to, with a single patent, have a uniform protection across 17 to 18 member states of the EU. And we see that the take-up rate is particularly high among startups and young businesses. And then it's more a question to Ehen and to Yata about what is the importance of geography to build these partnerships in the field of quantum computing in particular.
First of all, I'm expecting, especially between the software companies and hardware companies, there should be a collaboration in the future because the technology is so new and there is too much problem within, especially in the hardware situation. But sometimes, especially recently in the IBM developments, trying to resolve this kind of disadvantage of the quantum technologies resolving with the software. Right now, we are very early stage in Europe. If we check, most of the companies very young. But the future, I'm expecting there will be too much collaboration between in the industry. Especially if we check the geographical territory, I'm not sure there will be a problem, especially between Europe, United States, or the other territory. Maybe sometimes it depends of the countries, especially general approach of the other countries, especially with trading agreements like that. But I think if we talk about the software, right now everything is running on cloud and easily accessible. I believe there is no problem in the future.
Okay, trying to avoid friction in licensing agreements would be great, I suppose, at least, you know, with European companies. Maybe my next question is more general. I mean, we know that there are a lot of startups that will be watching this webinar and wondering what are the strategic choices that should be considered when patenting quantum computing related inventions. I mean, geographical average, technology readiness. Some people are even saying there won't be any real commercial offer in quantum computers before 20 years. And the lifespan of a patent is 20 years. So is it worth it to patent hardware today or not? Maybe Yata and then Eran.
Well, I think 5 to 10 years is probably, at least many people have kind of said that is the time when there will be more quantum computers in the market, and the market will be more mature. But basically, when you're thinking about patenting quantum computing related inventions, I think one of the things that you need to think about is whether what you are planning on patenting is detectable. So is it something that is visible from the competitor's product? Can they design around the invention? And for example, can you broaden the coverage of your invention? For example, if you are concentrating on superconducting qubits, is it possible to cover different qubit modalities in the same application? Who are you trying to prevent from using your invention? Are you claiming only small components or the full quantum computers? These kind of things are things that you should consider from the perspective of what to protect and with what kind of intellectual property rights. It's also good to have a sufficient disclosure. I have understood that in certain jurisdictions, if you don't describe well enough your invention, that might become an obstacle for patenting. And then about where to file your patents, I think you should emphasize those jurisdictions where your clients or customers are, but also where the competitors' customers are, and where the competitors are manufacturing, and also those jurisdictions where there is a likelihood of enforceability for the patent. So not everywhere, but the key markets. It may be advisable to use this international patent application PCT procedure, especially since the technology readiness level may be still small and you might want to buy more time to make the decision where to continue with your patent protection. If you are in a hurry, you might want to use provisionals, in US at least, that is available. I know some companies, for example, IBM, Google, they are using these continuation applications in US just to keep the important patents alive. And of course, unitary patent system is something that you could consider, especially I think it was if you are targeting more than 4 countries within this unitary patent system, then it becomes more cost effective. And then when to file these patents as soon as possible. As I mentioned, there could be problems if you are delaying the process. So at least these kind of things to consider.
That's good.
Actually, I'm agreeing with Yata. Actually, I believe in patents. Yes, it's protect within 20 years, but if we create something new, we always keep it protect with its intellectual property.
And maybe something that could be related, because many startups believe that, I might not need to patent something because I can keep it as trade secret. And it is most of the time misunderstood. That's something that we have seen at 4IP Council, because we have an infographic explaining trade secrets. How would you advise, actually, when do you need to make the choice between keeping an invention or something new that you have created as trade secret, or going the patent route? Anyone willing to answer this?
I can start with I think keeping it as a trade secret, something you developed, is impossible, especially if we think about the 10 years, 20 years, because people working on this project and people changing it. Also, if we have a development, they will hurt about our competitors. It's not, I believe it's not the 100 way possible to do this. I think if we check all software companies, independent quantum computing, people may not believe protecting software via a patent application, because there are major problem with patenting software, especially in computer implemented inventions, protecting it. But if we check the EPO's approach, especially as I remember 2000, after the 2018, EPO takes into, for example, AI or machine learning applications. They consider it has a technical characters. Also, with this kind of application, if we use mathematical models, these kind of things support this. So this kind of improvements actually helps getting a patent, granting a patent. But software companies, I think, not believe this, because we are they are I believe they are thinking something like this. We are applying this kind of application. It may not be granted. Our know-how will be shared third parties. Maybe it's not worth it. I believe they are thinking something like this. But if there is a good approach to drafting it, I believe there's a good way to protecting in intellectual property, like a patent application.
Maybe I could add on that basically trade secrets could be relevant if you don't kind of want to reveal the details of your invention. For example, in quantum computing fabrication methods, especially if that is not something that would be then visible from the end product, some material selections, or if you have some proprietary algorithm designs that you don't want to reveal by patenting, then that is one option to keep it as a trade secret. And then more generically, if this invention is visible in the product, obviously you cannot keep it as a trade secret. Or if it can be reverse engineered, then that is an area where you cannot keep it as a trade secret. And if you want to keep something as a trade secret, what is really important, what I think maybe not all these startups have even thought about, is that you need to have a trade secret policy that everybody knows about, which means that how do you treat trade secrets, and what kind of agreements, NDAs, do you have to have in place with different kind of parties like customers, partners, etc. So unless you don't have these kind of measures in place, then if the trade secret is revealed, then you cannot really kind of show that you have done your best to keep the trade secret as a secret.
Okay, So there is a complementarity. There is also the fact that the quantum ecosystem is moving at a very fast pace, and employees are also jumping from one company to the others. And so it creates more difficulties. Now that we are approaching to the end of this webinar, I would like to ask you, each of you, if you have only one tip to give to a startup willing to start, an IP strategy, and especially patenting their innovations, what would be this tip? Maybe Jan, if you start.
Yes, so actually that's related to this question of patents and trade secrets. So to me, as an economist, or not as a scientist or quantum expert, they go together. It's like an iceberg. You have the visible part of the iceberg, it's the patent, and the invisible part, it's the trade secrets. Usually you have a mix of both. And the fact that the visible part is visible is very important. Especially in a field that is maybe not yet ready to reach the market, but that is in building, where you need to build collaboration, you need to attract investors. The patent make the technology visible, and that's also a consideration to have to make. Why do I protect this? Because I will be able to safely show it to potential partners, and I think at this moment in the building of the ecosystem, it's an important factor.
Yatta?
Well, maybe if you don't have the luxury of having IP professionals of your own, I would suggest contacting external experts. For example, me, I am nowadays working in an IP law firm as an IP business advisor, so I'm happy to help you. But in addition to that, there is, for example, this Euroquick IPT working group, where we have already people working in the industry, quantum computing. I think majority of the members are representatives from the IP law firms. So I think it would be kind of good to have more representatives from the industry side as well. And there we are discussing about very topical issues related to the quantum computing related IP matters. So that is also one place to search for help.
Eran?
Actually, as Yata mentioned before, getting advisement from a IP professional, especially experienced with the quantum technologies or quantum computing, is very, very important. Also, as we mentioned before, in the quantum technologies, different other industries, because it's so new and there is not too much documents or publications in the state of the art. Following all the published papers is very, very helpful. Especially right now, if we check the published research reports, most of them include published papers, not the patent applications. And most of them, these applications are novel, but not inventive or not has any technical character. Creating this kind of balance very, very important in this industry. So working with the IP professionals or the other independent IP support groups may very, very helpful.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all the advice, the experience, all the data. I mean, this topic is fascinating, and this is moving forward very fast. So I'm looking forward to our further discussion in the future. But to conclude this webinar, I would like to thank again Yatta, Eran, and Jan for sharing your knowledge. This webinar the recording of the webinar will be made available tomorrow on the 4IP Council's website. I would like to invite you to register to the next webinar that will be on the 19th of September. And the topic will be infringing AI, liability for AI generated outputs under EU, UK copyright law. Finally, I would like to remind you that you will receive a small survey tomorrow just to provide your feedback regarding this webinar and to suggest new topics please feel free to get in touch with our IP Council. We're here to educate, we're here to help. So that will be our pleasure. And to conclude, I wish you all a great summer if you take a few days off, and looking forward to talking to you at the next webinar. Thank you so much.